For the housing counseling industry, in working with originators, for example, if we're able to show the average consumer saw a 30% bump or a 40% bump in their credit score from going through housing counseling, I think that more originators, more lenders would want their consumers to go through housing counseling prior to starting a mortgage application.
Welcome to Actualizing Success. In this podcast series, our in-house advisors discuss today's finance and technology topics with an emphasis on solutions that embrace tomorrow.
Welcome to the Actualize Consulting Podcast. In this episode, we're diving into the MISMO Housing Counseling Dataset, what it is, why it matters, and how it can benefit the broader housing ecosystem. This dataset and housing counseling more broadly has been a major focus for Actualize Consulting's affordable housing community of practice, where we work to develop innovative solutions and elevate key industry conversations. A big part of that is our Affordable Housing Advisory Group, where we bring together leaders and innovators from across the space. We are lucky to be joined today by a member of that advisory group, David Young, Director of Capacity Building at Housing Action Illinois. David is a leader in the housing counseling data standardization efforts and serves as the chair of the MISMO Housing Counseling Dataset Working Group. He is joined in conversation with Matt Seu, partner in our mortgage and fixed income practice. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline.
To kick us off, David, can you provide an overview of the housing counseling ecosystem and its importance for all potential borrowers?
Sure. Thanks, Caroline. So housing counseling has existed for more than 50 years, and the purpose of housing counseling is really to help people, regardless of income, regardless of social status, to meet their housing needs, whether someone is looking to rent a home, looking to improve their credit, looking to purchase a home. The housing counseling industry, through housing counselors, provides unbiased information to consumers so that they can make the best choices on behalf of themselves and their families.
And what challenges were you seeing in the housing counseling space that prompted the creation of this data set?
So we know as an industry that housing counseling provides a real benefit to consumers. So consumers that take pre-purchase education and counseling, for example, they have an easier time of getting a mortgage and over the life of the loan have better outcomes. And although we knew this qualitatively, we did not have a lot of quantitative data that showed that. So one of the reasons that we wanted to create this data set is so that we had the ability to capture more data so that we could really show the long-term positive impacts that housing counseling has for persons that are looking to purchase a home and then are maintaining their home for the life of the loan.
So why did the housing counseling industry choose MISMO?
So it's really important to be able to share information across systems. And so in developing this data set, we realized that because we work so closely with other partners in the financial system, whether it's mortgage originators or mortgage servicers, that we all needed to be able to speak the same language, because if our systems were all speaking the same language, it would be much easier for us to transfer data back and forth. That would be a benefit to the consumers. That would be a benefit of the process to make it more efficient. And MISMO really was the repository for that system. MISMO established the language that loan operating systems, that servicing systems are using. So it only made sense to us as the housing counseling industry that if we wanted to have better cooperation and collaboration amongst all of the different partners in the system, that we should be using the same language.
And Matt, for listeners who may not be familiar, what is MISMO? How does the housing counseling data set align with other MISMO standards already used in origination and servicing?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. MISMO is a subsidiary of the Mortgage Bankers Association. The acronym stands for Mortgage Industry Standards Maintenance Organization. It's been around for nearly 25 years now. But what's important, I think, about MISMO, the entity, is that it is an area where people come together in the mortgage industry to collaborate on the standards. It's an open organization where anyone can participate and volunteer. You can also be members. That gives you a little bit more access. But I think it's interesting what David said, because when you think about housing counseling or even the systems that support it, that there's not been or hadn't been a big presence there. But David has been involved with it for years now. This has been a long journey. And I think that it, just like anything else, it really fit in to what MISMO is trying to do. And again, it's a group where you can collaborate. It's also a series of standards that David alluded to, including data schemas, a logical data model, a data dictionary, a business glossary, that all pertain to the life of the loan. And again, when you think about what a housing counseling data set would be, it's really based on the business events, which would be preparation with the borrower for a loan application, assisting with the processes, including the borrower's role through that, to include things that may come up, such as assistance with down payment or closing costs or whatever it might be. But then also over the life of the loan, the housing counseling industry participates throughout that with the borrower, including, once they close, it's time to make payments every month for a long time. And that reinforcement is really important in terms of keeping the borrower in the house, whether it be some type of negative situation with the borrower that may decrease their income or whatever it might be. The counseling helps them understand what alternatives they have to stay in the house and stay current with their payments. So I think when you look at MISMO, it is the right platform. And again, there's been tremendous value creation in the space from the biggest players in the industry. Just talking a little bit about the UMDP program with Fannie Freddie, they've put standards into the market for automated underwriting, for delivery of loans, for doing other things like appraisal, so forth and so on. Been a little bit less so on the servicing side, but the government stepped in. Ginnie Mae created their pool delivery data set, and there was an effort that was a combined effort across the Govy agencies to create a servicing standard that was mainly sponsored by VA. So, when you look at all of the information in those data sets, it's very, very relevant to what is in the housing counseling data set. David, I think you covered off a little bit about this, but maybe just talk a little bit about what are some of the components of the data set, maybe talking about it in relation to the business, but, what is it that's specifically there that might be unique or important?
Sure. Something that's very unique about what we've done is up until our housing counseling development work group started working on this data set, what MISMO tended to look at was the life of the loan. So they looked from the time that a consumer started to fill out an application through the closing, through the servicing period for the term of the loan, and then the closeout of the loan. MISMO did not spend much time looking at what happened, all of the things that take place prior to that mortgage application getting started. So when the housing counseling industry got involved with MISMO, one of the first things that we did is we went through the MISMO residential reference model to determine all of the data points in that model that were relevant to housing counseling. And then once we were able to determine that, we went through and looked at what is missing from this data set that needs to be there for us. What is missing from this reference model that needs to be there for us? And overall, we ended up creating a data set that has about 250 data points, of which 50 of those data points are things that take place prior to filling out a mortgage application. So, for example, when a consumer comes to see a housing counselor, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to pull a credit report with a credit score, because we're going to want to know where they are in terms of their credit, and will they qualify based on the credit score, or do they need to build their credit score? And then we're going to look again when they finish their housing counseling and they're getting ready to apply for a mortgage to see what their credit score is. And there's going to usually be a significant difference in their credit score because they've learned some skills through going through counseling. The counselor has helped them with, for example, if they've had issues on their credit report that have had an impact, we've helped them to resolve or mitigate those issues, which helps to build up their credit score. Being able to show the increase in the credit score from the time that they started counseling to the time that they start their mortgage application is pretty significant. And for the housing counseling industry, in working with originators, for example, if we're able to show the average consumer saw a 30% bump or a 40% bump in their credit score from going through housing counseling, I think that more originators, more lenders would want their consumers to go through housing counseling prior to starting a mortgage application, because they're going to see a client that is in a better position to be approved for a mortgage. And so, it's the credit score. There are other things like, for example, what was the address of the consumer when they started counseling? What is the address of the consumer when they purchased a home? Were they able to move into a higher income neighborhood with more assets? Were they able to, with better schools, for example? All of those things are really important to be able to know and then to share with originators and servicers. And I want to just bring up one other point about the communication. We talked earlier about how having these systems be able to talk to each other, that's so important. And Matt mentioned, if there's a homeowner that is having an issue with making their payments, if we all know where that consumer received housing counseling, then by having this language in place, it means that a servicer, for example, could reach out to the housing counseling agency, letting the agency know that the client needs some assistance, and the housing counselor could reach out to that client and provide them with assistance. And if we can get that assistance to that homeowner faster and get that assistance through an organization that the homeowner already trusts, then there's more opportunity to mitigate those issues and keep that household in that home, which is, better for the investor, it's better for the bank, it's better for the overall neighborhood, it's better for the family.
This is all so interesting. How is the industry going to adopt this data set, and what is that going to look like?
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about a couple of things about the ecosystem that are interesting. And quite frankly, there's some of them that make it easier and some that make it more difficult for adoption. But the first thing that we didn't mention, in addition to the benefits to the borrower, I mean, these qualified, educated borrowers are valuable to any lender. I certainly, if I were a loan officer, would take this type of borrower and a lead for that any day. It certainly takes away some of the risk and the cost in relation to capturing borrowers. But when we look at the ecosystem in general, there's some things about housing counseling and the technologies that are important. Housing counseling can be companies that are fairly large, that have a lot of financial backing, or they can be very small. And when you think about that, there's certainly a range of capability and technology that they can afford and that they do have and use. And so where I think the larger technology firms in this space certainly will benefit from the standard, it really needs to be looked at across that diverse area. And so, when I think about adoption and I look at what MISMO adoption has looked like historically, it's generally done in relation to a mandate from one of these bigger players that I mentioned earlier, be it the GSEs or the government entities. I think this time it's really more of a grassroots type effort. But the complexity is going to be that these counseling systems need to be integrated in with the loan origination platforms. And so that's an important concept. And so and with the servicing ones on the back end. So I think the concept is that there needs to be a demand and a push and pull on this from both sides. The good news is there's strong awareness already on this, and there'll be even more with some events that are coming up, which we can chat about in a minute. But I think the thing that's going to make adoption happen is really to get some of the larger players to begin understanding the value proposition. And on the housing counseling side, David articulated it very well. I mean, these are mission-driven entities, and it's right in their wheelhouse to believe that this type of standard will benefit the borrowers, the organizations, and the general housing ecosystem. I think on the LOS side, it's got to be more from what I said. This streamlines processes to get newer and better borrowers through the system. And so it is going to take the industry to move this ahead. And I think some of the skids have been greased already with participants in the work group and so forth. But I think that's really how it's going to have to be. And there are some technologies that could assist with some of this, including one that Actualize provides, TransformX. It's an integration tool, and it's something that the industry could consider to do some integrations between the systems. And I think also there will probably be some type of tools that may emerge based on the set that can be used by those smaller entities. But that's my general sense of it. David, does that resonate with you, or do you have any other thoughts on that?
It really does resonate with me, Matt. Time is money, right? We've heard that all throughout our lives. And because time is so valuable, it's really important to be able to put processes in place that allow us to save time and save money. And I believe by having this data set, by using a common language and having all of these systems be able to talk to each other, that not only are we able to save time and save money, but we're also able to increase certainty. So if, for example, if we are able to, right now, when a mortgage applicant goes through housing counseling, right, they're providing the housing counselor with all of this important data, the verification of deposits, the verification of assets, proof of employment, all of these things. And then once that consumer finishes education and counseling and goes to apply for a mortgage, they have to turn around and duplicate all of those documents and provide those to a mortgage originator. That takes up extra time. It lengthens the process. It means that there is an opportunity for error, for a missing document or something like that. And by putting these systems in place using a common language and being able to transfer data, it means that the housing counseling organization could send that information, that package, on behalf of the consumer to the originator of their choice, which means that all of that information is packaged the way that the bank needs to see it, And we've saved time. They can process the mortgage faster. They can get that consumer approved faster, get them closed faster, and that saves money. And especially being that we know, according to the MBA, which does a survey of this over every year, that it's costing over $13,000 to close an approved loan. Any way that we can cut that cost down means that the system is more efficient and we're able to help more people to be able to secure a mortgage. So by putting these pieces in place, I think it's very valuable. Housing counseling organizations work through client management systems, and we transfer data back and forth through the client management systems. And as Matt was talking about, if we can make sure that the client management systems that we use are integrated with the loan origination systems and the servicing systems, then we can increase efficiencies and we can help consumers that are looking to purchase or consumers that already own a home if they're running into issues. By having that communication across all of these systems, we can help people faster and we can save money, and that's just extremely valuable.
So how can industry leaders and organizations learn more about how to adopt this data set? What opportunities are out there to kind of really dive into this deeper?
So one thing that I would say is for people that are interested in learning more about the data set, they should take a look at MISMO and consider joining MISMO, because you have access not only to the housing counseling data set, but all of the other data sets that have been built for the mortgage industry. And coming up next month in May, on May 14th, we're actually doing a what we call a Client Management System Developer Summit for the Housing Counseling Client Management System developers, where we will be explaining the data set, how it works, and talking to CMS developers about what impediments there are with adopting this data set so we can help them to address it and increase the number of client management systems that are adopting it. Because as Matt talked about, it's really not going to come down to a mandate from, say, HUD or from anybody else. It's really going to be the housing counseling industry that are subscribing to client management systems, asking for their developers to integrate this system and then being able to show the benefits of that integration.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, David, there's a pretty decent size event at MISMO in June in Louisville, right? I think we've got a fairly large presentation on Monday. Did you want to quickly talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So because of the creation of the data set, MISMO sees as I had talked about earlier, that we have expanded the universe within MISMO, which originally just looked from the time of application to the time of mortgage sunset, and now really understands that there are a number of activities that take place before mortgage application that are valuable to document and quantify. And this event that's coming up June 1st at the MISMO Spring Summit in Louisville, Kentucky, is focusing on those areas and seeing if there is a need to build on the housing counseling data set so that we can capture more information and look at different systems. For example, like there's Rocket Money and Credit Karma that helps people with improving their credit or paying their bills. Does it make sense for us to have a system that allows for interoperability with those systems, with housing counseling systems, with loan origination systems and servicing systems, so that we can again further streamline the process and create more avenues for communication and collaboration, which ultimately benefits the consumer that wants to move from maybe using Credit Karma to fix their credit score, to working with a housing counseling organization to become mortgage ready, to getting approved for a mortgage, and then knowing that if there's any type of issue in the future with their being able to pay the mortgage, that the servicer can let the housing counseling agency know so that they can step in and provide that consumer with valuable assistance to help them keep their home.
Yeah, that's really important. And I would just say also, Actualize has been involved in the data set work, I believe, since the inception. And as Caroline mentioned earlier, we're very deep in the affordable space. It's a very important part of our mission in the company, and we're unbelievably excited about this. And again, through our MISMO services and digital transformation, we help companies integrate across the life of the loan. And so this is just a natural place that intersects with what we're all about and what we do well in the MISMO and the data space. So we're excited for the ability to help the industry move forward on this. And you can always check on our website to see what that's all about.
I echo everything David and Matt said. This is a really exciting space, and affordable is something we care about deeply at Actualize. So David, thank you so much for joining us today and helping break down the MISMO Housing Counseling Dataset. And please join us on the 14th for the CMS Developer Summit that Housing Action Illinois is organizing. Until next time, thanks everyone.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Actualizing Success. Make sure to visit us online at www.actualizeconsulting.com, where you can explore our service offerings. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or your preferred platform. If you've enjoyed what we talked about today, please consider leaving a review and following us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or would like to share your opinions with us, please send us a note at podcast@actualizeconsulting.com. We look forward to hearing from you.